Hey everyone, welcome back to So Arizona. Today we are going to be battling Bermuda grass by fire. It is no secret that I have been battling and fighting with this Bermuda grass for the last few seasons. I've shared a few tips for what I do to keep it under control. I also wrote an ebook that's available for purchase on my website. I'll leave the link to that below if you would like to go check that out. This ebook goes through all kinds of different things about Bermuda grass, the history, the growing conditions, the physical nature of it, because I think that when you understand plants, you can either support them better and get a better outcome in your garden, but also with certain weeds and invasives, understanding them can also help you win the battle. So today we are actually going to be treating some of the Bermuda grass with fire, as I said. So TJ is going to be coming out to help me burn it down. So beforehand, I mowed it and trimmed it so that it was a little bit shorter. He's going to come through and burn it. And then after that, I'm going to show you what we're doing for treating the Bermuda grass, because believe it or not, the fire will only kill the portion above ground, but all of the roots are going to remain alive and it will just come back. So burning it is just a way to get the growth on top of the soil under control so that then you can treat it in a much more effective way. We've got a couple of buckets of water. We each have a garden hose available just in case, because as you see behind me, I've got lots of wood chips and down as ground cover, and so I don't want to have any kind of fire get out of control. We also wet down the area all around the beds really well beforehand, so we've got all of our bases covered with that. We're only doing small sections at a time, one of us on each side of the bed with that garden hose and the buckets of water, so we're not worried about that at all. Once we get finished with burning the Bermuda grass and it's all done, then I'm going to come through and I'm going to wet down the ashes just to make sure that we don't have any embers burning in those beds. So we're being extra careful here. If you decide that you want to burn Bermuda grass, please do take the precautions that I talked about. I do not want you starting a wildfire. Once that's finished, you can move on to one of the other steps. And today I am going to be using a practice called occultation. There are two very similar practices, occultation and solarization. And solarization is actually much better known, and that is where you are going to just cover the ground where the Bermuda grass is growing with a clear plastic. Usually it's a pretty thick grade plastic, and what that does is it creates almost a greenhouse condition underneath, so the solar energy is penetrating through that clear plastic, it's heating everything up, it's essentially cooking the Bermuda grass, and so that is going to block all the water, and the Bermuda grass will grow up, but then it's going to get fried. Solarization takes about 6 to 8 weeks, so if you're going to try that, just know that you're not going to be able to use that space for a few weeks of time. Occultation is basically the same thing, you're just using a different material. So instead of a clear plastic, you're going to be using a thick silage tarp, which is not transparent. It is actually going to be white on one side, most likely, and black on the other. So I'm using the tarp. I've used the silage tarp many times and it works really well. It takes a little bit longer, so instead of 6 to 8 weeks like the solarization, it's actually going to be taking about 10 weeks, maybe 12, so it's a little bit longer. Otherwise, you just spread it out over the area and you weigh it down with rocks or sandbags or whatever you have, and you just wait. There is a little bit of prep time whether you're going to use occultation or solarization. What I like to do is wet down the area really, really well, because I want to stimulate any kind of weed seeds that are in that soil to germinate. And once I do that, I then will cover it with the silage tarp or with the plastic if you're using solarization. And then that's going to heat it up, thereby encouraging those seeds to germinate even more. Once those seeds germinate, they are going to get cooked, both with solarization and with occultation. Now, with occultation, you're actually going to block sunlight too. So you're blocking photosynthesis, you're blocking water, and you're also adding heat to cook all of those germinating seeds and all of the roots of that Bermuda grass or whatever vegetation that you're trying to kill. So I actually really like occultation much better than solarization because you're getting all three of those things. Now, both of them are really effective. As I said, solarization, some people like better because it's a little bit faster, but you can just choose whatever it is that you want to do and whatever materials that you have on hand. I've had this tarp for 4 years now. When I started building my garden, I cleared the whole area so that way the tarp could lay flat against the soil. I spread it out with the help of my son. We weighed it down with some rocks that we found in the yard, and we just waited. And so when you look at the space that I had to begin with, it looks pretty much dry and dusty, like there wasn't a whole lot growing, but there were seasonal weeds, a lot of seasonal weeds. So when we would get a rain, we would get London rocket and Bermuda grass in the spring, and if it was in the summer, the Bermuda grass and the amaranth would take over. So when you look at the video when I started my garden at the space, you think, well, it looks like it's pretty clean to me, and it was at the time, but I wanted to make sure that I was starting with a clean slate. I did not want any of those seasonal weeds happening. So I had waited until we got a nice good spring rain. I also wet the area down really well first, and then I covered it, and I just waited for weeks. And I wanted to make sure that it was really, really safe to be able to start the garden without having to worry about all the weeds. But Bermuda grass always finds a way. I think you track it in on your shoes, the seeds. It's a grass, so it's wind pollinated. Birds will eat the seeds, and then they'll come in and their droppings will contain the seeds that have passed through their digestive tract. So there are a lot of different ways that it can return. And once it returns, it just spreads so fast. So this is a practice that I have to do occasionally. And I like to do it just in segments, but I know that when I do it, that garden bed is actually going to be out of commission for a little bit. So I have one of my 4x4 garden beds that needs to have this done. And I also have a portion of one of my longer beds, and that's the one that we're treating today. So we're going to burn it. We're going to wet it down again, and then I'm going to cover it and just wait. And hopefully by May or so, I can safely plant in there. I love doing this method, even though it requires a little more patience, because I don't have to break my back trying to rip all of the Bermuda grass out by hand, which is actually really effective if you're careful to dig down and get all of the roots. But that can be 12 to 18 inches below the soil. I have dug down so far and found Bermuda grass runners and rhizomes down there. So it is an amazing plant, and I think that's why it does so well in the desert. It will just go deep, and it's really drought tolerant, really heat tolerant, and so persistent. But if you're looking for a way to kickstart your spring garden and you want to try this safely with lots of water and lots of attention, you can give it a try. That's it for today. If you decide to try this treatment for Bermuda grass, let me know how it goes. You can always drop it in the comments below, or you can of course email me at kara@soarizona.com. I'm Kara from So Arizona. Thank you so much for joining me again in the garden today. Until next time, happy gardening.